Well, hey everybody, welcome to my channel. It's HeapCVA here. Thanks for coming by, I really appreciate it. This is not a gameplay video. And there's a good reason, or as good a reason as I can come up with. I apologize. I will get back to the gameplay today. In fact, because I added this in, I'll probably do a little bit of content over the weekend, just to kind of make up for it. So, what in the world am I doing? Let me get onto my YouTube channel. Make that a little skinnier. I had, among the other things I've done on my channel over time, is I added, some of these playlists, some of the ones that'll eventually go away down here at the very bottom, because I really don't have time to play other games per se. But this one right here in this sub list of playlists, I know it's hard to kind of follow that, but YouTube's list labels of things is sometimes kind of unusual, is I created a playlist that you see as tech tips and info. And I created a video, if we look at it, that I think I put it up, well, it says updated today, but it's actually from 2017. I think it's from May of 2017. No biggie. At the time, it was talking about, I think Emerge NYC was the hot game of the moment. Issues that I was being contacted by people both on the forums, Steam forums, etc., in-game, and on this channel for different hardware problems with the game, and it was really affecting their gameplay. And so I needed to know some things before I could help them. Obviously, all the people who are on this channel, none of our computers look exactly alike. They don't act exactly alike. Even if you go and you buy two of the same computer, from, let's say you go to a computer store like we have Micro Center. I know those are across the United States. And you go and you buy two of their computers that they build in-house that are exactly the same, have the same serial number, sort of model number, not serial number, sorry. They're going to be different. The stuff that's put into computers, even if it's the same item in each one, they develop their own characteristics. They don't all play 100%. They don't all work exactly the same. Some have issues. Some will go belly up in the first 72 hours. I mean, the list is pretty long. And so when you're starting to play these games that are adding a lot of characters and visuals and moving parts and all that stuff, it does stress your computer out a lot. That being said, I had talked in this Tech Tips about where to get the information that I need so I can start helping the player out, the gamer. And at that time, a really good place to go, and really it hasn't changed much, is Steam. Now, this is my Steam homepage, and where I'm going to tell you to look, doesn't matter what page. You could be in the store, you can be in the community, doesn't really matter. What you're looking for is the smaller words up in the upper left-hand corner, which are drop-down menus. And you're looking for the last one, which is the help drop-down menu. When you click on it, obviously, the next one from the bottom is system information. And when you click on that, as I will do here, and I can actually make it bigger, which is kind of cool. And I'm going to keep making it big so it covers most of the screen here, even though only the left side of it is filled out. But you can see the amount of info that you get from Steam. Now remember, the info you're getting from Steam is because of it's a game platform, so it looks at your hardware from that perspective. So out of this list that it provides you, what is it giving you that I would need to know? And this is just for if you do it from Steam. And I know that the games that I'm playing right now, the ones that I'm uploading to the channel with the exception of Emergency Force / 911 First Responder, I got a peek just a little bit. Right now, that's it. Because you could buy those other games as CDs. I actually have my original CD for the game. The rest of these games are only sold on Steam. So I know you have Steam installed on your computer. So we can just not worry about that at all. So anyway, what's in here that I would be interested in? Well, obviously, your computer has to have a motherboard, so that's kind of a given. I would be interested in the processor, the brain of the computer. What do you have? Do you have an Intel? Do you have an AMD? What kind of chip is it? How old is it? And you don't have to tell me it's 10 years old. Just tell me, like here in my processor information, it says CPU brand is an Intel Core i7 9700K CPU at 3.60 gigahertz. If you can tell me that, I know exactly what's in your computer as far as a processor. And it allows me to look up that processor and find out its normal speed, what the speed is if you overclock, how many processors or channels or whatever. AMD and Intel use different language, but how powerful that CPU is. The rest of the stuff, I don't necessarily need to know right up front. It is a good thing to know if you're playing out of Windows 10, Windows 8, 8.1 or Vista, or Windows 7. Each operating system in Windows, each of those numbers is significant in different ways. And like I said, we're just scrolling down this. I definitely need to know, does your computer have a video card? And it'll be pretty obvious unless you have a laptop, because you can't see inside of a laptop. But it'll tell you even laptops can have video cards installed. My Asus laptop has it's like a 950 GTX 950. It's got some age on it now. It's 4 years old. I need to know AMD or NVIDIA, whether it's a GTX or GT, talking about NVIDIA, or Radeon is what AMD calls their graphics cards, what the number is after Radeon, because that tells the story about the video card itself. Eventually, I'll ask you about drivers and stuff like that, but not up front. I'm looking to see what kind of video card it is, if in fact you have one. If you don't have a video card, and this will tell me, it will say none. That means the CPU which will tell me that your computer's pretty new and that the video that you see on your monitor is being driven through the CPU, through the motherboard, and out through whatever cabling that you plug your monitor into the back of the computer. Or on a laptop, it's just because basically the monitor is connected to it already. It's being driven through the motherboard. That's called integrated graphics. You can do a lot with integrated graphics, but it does have its limitations. Even video cards have limitations. So knowing that is going to tell me a lot of stuff. One of the things I'm also going to look for in a video card is how much VRAM, which is video RAM, is assigned to that video card. Now, if you have integrated graphics, you don't have video RAM. It's using your regular memory, which is just RAM, random access memory, which is down a little bit further. It's taking from that pot of memory, that box of memory, that jar of memory, whatever you want to call it. And that is that last bit of information that's really important that I really need to know. How much memory is installed in your computer? And in that respect, it doesn't matter if it's a Windows, Mac, Linux. I've heard that pronounced so many different ways. Linux. One of the open source operating systems. I still need to know what the hardware is behind it because they're very similar. Now, when you text me and ask me about, and we're going to talk about frame rates or FPS, frames per second, in a given game. If you have a Mac or you're running an open source computer using Linux, I can't directly answer your question. I'll probably send you off to somebody else who's much more knowledgeable than I am. My expertise, and I'm saying that, using that word very loosely, is Windows-based computers. It wasn't originally, but it's kind of where things started moving me as I started doing work for other people and where I was employed for years. I was one of the computer repair guys. I set up hardware, software, and then started, on my time off, taking a really big interest in building my own computers. I love to open something up and see how it ticks. I've torn apart my alarm clock, TVs, you name it. I'm really bad at it as far as my parents were concerned because I always had stuff taken apart. Getting it back together wasn't always perfect, but I always liked to see what was inside. Let's get back to what we're talking about here. So, out of Steam, here's the information it's going to give you. It actually gives me everything I need to know to go from step 1, which is getting this information, to step 2. While you're perhaps waiting for me to find an answer for you or give you the next step, if you're talking directly to me, I'm going to close this. There's something I've seen on the internet. You kind of saw a quick picture of it there for a second as I was going back to my channel. Is a website called User Benchmark. And benchmarking computers is just a way of saying you're testing something in a computer. A lot of places benchmark video cards for their performance. Benchmarking is done for memory. It's done for motherboards. Excuse me, I apologize for that. And then there are some benchmark systems, like the one I'm showing you here, that benchmark all of them. And what their goal is to show you what your computer is as compared to other computers and give you an idea of where you're at performance-wise. And so you get what it says, performance results. Now, when you weren't looking, every time I open this website, it automatically runs the test, which takes about between 5 and 7 minutes. And it is literally throwing a whole bunch of tests at everything except your operating system. So here's the parameters in these squares right here. And then it gives you a status. The processor gets tested a couple of different ways. Graphics definitely get tested multiple different ways. Your boot drive, it does test storage and wait times, throughput, stuff like that. It definitely tests your memory. And the operating system version is just to tell it how to do the tests. And so you come up with a basic set of information. It rates your computer at the top based on how it would do as a gaming computer, how it would do as a regular desktop, just for somebody that checks their email and goes on Facebook and stuff like that, doesn't play games, and how my computer would function as a workstation for somebody like in this year who's working from home now. Maybe they're not issued a company computer and they're hoping they have something that will run the probably proprietary software to do the work that they were hired to do. And so across the board, I scored in the 90 percentile, and they've considered my computer a nuclear submarine. And if that makes you kind of tilt your head and go, huh? I'll get to that in just a second, but let me finish this page. So as we look down here, you can see what it's been doing. It checked my CPU and how it performs. It checked my graphics card, which, like I said, is a GTX 1070 Ti. It's EVGA's version of it. NVIDIA makes the architecture, and then they license it to different companies. It looked at everything. I love when it says great. It looked at my two SSD drives. They're not the greatest. They're not the worst. They do exactly what I want them to do. One's a boot drive. One is the drive that I have my program that I render my video on. It rates my Western Digital 3 terabyte drive, which is where most of my storage is. Actually, it did very well. I was kind of surprised. And right now, because I've been doing some work on my computer, is I have a portable hard drive, which is another Western Digital, that's a 2 terabyte that I move, especially video and images, because they take up so much room. Eventually, I move them off the computer and store them until I absolutely know I don't need them anymore. So right now, that's plugged in. Normally, that's not plugged in. And then it ran a bunch of tests on my memory kit, which is a Corsair Vengeance Pro. Mine's got the RGB lights on it. It wasn't my original intent. That the price on them was really good. This is 32 gigs, and my memory, which is the only thing that's overclocked in my computer, is overclocked to 3200. Normally, it would be running at 2155 or something like that. So it gives you some latency ladders, which I understand, but trying to explain it to people, I'd rather just have them look for themselves. You can look at your computer now and then choose upgrades to see how your computer would perform under those conditions. It talks about comparable machines. And so it gives you all that information. So we talked about these ratings up here. Why is it a nuclear submarine? Well, it is users' benchmarks methodology for rating computers. They could have used any group, but they chose this particular set of words to identify where your computer falls on the chart. And remember, it's compared against other people that are doing the same thing. And it's especially interesting when I see MSI motherboards, because honestly, that's what mine is. And I'd like to see how my computer that I built is performing against others that have very similar build types. They're using the same motherboard. They might be using the same memory and all of that stuff. These are just the tests that were conducted in the last minute. People are used a ton out of this website. And that's why I'm kind of bringing it to your guys' attention, because until further notice, it's a great place to go, gives you a ton of information, and it's legit. There's a lot of junkware behind it. It's not going to mess with your computer. It doesn't leave anything behind except the executable, which is a fairly small program. You can make a desktop shortcut for it, and it only runs when you want it to run. So I am a nuclear submarine, which is the next to the highest. And if we scroll down here, it'll tell you the whys of where your computer is, where it is. As far as gaming, if I had taken my 1070 Ti and replaced it with a 2060 Super, that's what the S stands for, I would have gotten 100%. I'm okay with that because the price point for the 2000 series cards is still too high for me. And I wouldn't buy a 2060 anyway. At the very minimum, I'd do a 2070, and I'd love to have a 2080, but I'm not paying $1,200 for it. That's crazy. I can build a computer for $1,200. I built my wife's computer for $800, and it's a screamer. So, it's just kind of laying out why and the how of how it scored your computer. As a desktop, it doesn't give many recommendations, and then it gave me credit for the amount of cores or processing cores that my computer CPU had. So that's why it is what it is. That's how it tests against other ones. So it's just another place to get really good information. And if you check out the links at the top, and I'm really not going to go into this too far because I don't want the video to go too long, is it will tell you deeper information, suggestions, and then if you go to YouTube, they are creating a really good set of videos to kind of explain and give you tips about how to manage your computer, whether you have something going on that's negative or not. So, you know the three things I really need to know. I need to know what kind of computer you have, CPU, memory, do you have a video card, and obviously, what's wrong? There are some things I can make suggestions immediately, and there's sometimes I have to wait. Let me talk about things that you could do before you even have a program. Not a program. You got lots of programs. Before you have a problem, you're a gamer. You want your computer to perform at its top. What are some things you could do? And this part of this video is directed towards somebody that's using a Windows operating system. As I said, if you have a Mac or you have Linux, there are many places you can go to get that information. There's people on YouTube, on different forums on the internet that can give you the info you need to tweak your gaming computer as much as possible before you start your first gameplay. But you Windows people out there, I know about that, so I can show you right now. one thing I've learned the hard way, especially in the last few years, is some of these games that are coming out are so intensive as far as memory use, graphic card use, is that you've got to operate your machine smarter. So when I'm really intent on playing the best version of a game I can, and let's say I'm videoing it for a specific reason, I want my computer to play at its best, obviously. And so number one is when you're going to game, don't run a bunch of programs in the background. If you want to listen to music, if you want to, have YouTube up or Facebook or something else, use a laptop, a tablet, your phone, or whatever to do that outside of your computer. Shut it off on your computer. You're actually stealing memory from the game you want to play for these other things. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that it does affect performance. And I always, when I know the video is important, is I restart my computer. What that does is it shuts off anything that's not behaving. Some programs do not exit correctly. They may still keep the memory that was allocated to them. It will affect you. So do a restart. Go get a soda or whatever your favorite beverage is that you're going to drink while you're gameplay, and let it restart. You don't have to go all the way to off and then restart. Just do the usual Windows restart. It's going to make a difference. So, you Windows users out there, one thing I'd like to show you is something that you have called Task Manager. Windows has offered this since XP, those of you that even remember that or were around then, which shows you how your programs are looked at by Windows and how they're running from different perspectives. There's several tabs at the top. And the first one you're going to see is processes. Every program that runs on Windows is considered a process. And you can see in these columns how much of your CPU is being used in a given minute. And this is all real time. How much memory has already been allocated. I have 64 and 27% of it is already allocated. Most of it is because I'm running OBS, Audacity, and all of these windows are open. How much disk space is being used, which right now is none. How much graphic card use, because I have a graphics card, is being used. And it will kind of highlight who are the ones that are using any of it. This is a good start. But what I suggest that you do is go over to the 7th tab or 6th tab. There's 7 total. This is number 6, which is details, and click on that one. And what it did is it took everything you saw in the processes tab and broke it down even further. And this is where you can see some of the things that are running in the background that you may not even know are running. Now, the red square B for me is my antivirus. That's not going to get shut off. Audacity's there. I have Firefox open, obviously, because that's my browser that I use. My Razer and my Corsair programs are running in the background. NVIDIA, obviously, because I have a video card, it's going to help it run. And some other things that Windows is doing. Steam puts a lot of executables up. And so what you're looking for here is the name. And if you right click on it, it will give you properties and kind of give you an idea of who it is most of the time. You just right-click on the name and go to Properties. But there are always things in the background running that while you're gaming, you don't really need them running. You just restart your computer after you're done playing a game, and all these guys will come back. But it definitely affects gameplay. And it affects your frame rates. And so I've got at least 10 things that I can see right now that I could shut down to play a game and actually improve my frame rates, improve the gameplay without doing anything else. So keep those things in mind. And remember that when you run programs in the background, you're sacrificing memory that could be allocated to a game. Let's say Emerge NYC, which uses a lot of memory. And if you have a video card, it's using all of the video RAM you have. It's got a lot of things on the screen at the same time, and most of them are moving. The cars move, the people walking down the street, that all puts a burden on your video. So in these things, if you go over a couple of columns, you'll notice none of them are one if they're suspended or not, which I suspend some of them. I just don't want them to start. Especially ones that say, hey, you've got an update. I can figure that out on my own. But over here, you can see where memory has been set and instantly allocated when the game or the program starts. And some of the things that are running in the background on my computer use an awful lot of memory. But don't get freaked out when you see 512,240. That is kilobytes. Every 1,028 kilobytes is a megabyte. 1,024 megabytes is a gigabyte. I hope I said that right. I'm pretty sure I did. I'll have to replay it and see how much I messed up. So that's actually a fairly small number. That's 5 gig, give or take. Maybe one. Yeah, I'm going to just leave it at that because my mind just went blank. Don't want to shoot myself in the foot here. And so these are the kind of things that if you're not computer savvy, and that's absolutely okay. Not everybody has the opportunities that I've been given over time to really get involved in the mechanics of building and managing and maintaining computers for years, since some of the first desktops were available for use in the home. Give away my age. So I hope that's enough info for now. I don't want it to go too long. I already went a little too far. We're over 30 minutes. I might be able to trim that down a little bit. So this will give you enough to get started. If you're having an issue and you've contacted me, or you're thinking about contacting me, or you put a question up on a forum for a given game, which is really a good idea. This is the information that you should know, because I can promise you, especially on the Steam forums, if you say, I can't get good frame rates, it's terrible, or my game won't even play that game, the first question out of almost everybody's mouth that is willing to help people, which gets to be a smaller number all the time, is what kind of computer do you have? What do you have underneath the hood? Do you have a video card? They're going to ask you those questions. I can guarantee it, and I'll bet my lunch on it. So you should have that information ready to go. When you bring up the info from the Steam help link, you can actually save that file so that you could print it out or copy it and paste it into a message, which is really helpful. So let's stop for now. We'll have another video to kind of go further with this, probably next week. I've got to check some things to make sure some things are still the way they were, or if there's anything new that I should also bring to the table. I really appreciate you guys coming by the channel. I know this isn't gameplay, but it is semi-important for gamers. We're all gamers that come here. I haven't met somebody on my channel yet that isn't playing a game of some kind. Or they're hoping to get a computer and game and do a YouTube channel and all that stuff. It's awesome. If I could support everybody, I would. And so these kind of things, the knowledge base behind it, is super important. If you could, comments, suggestions, questions, please, down in the comments. Really appreciate it. I get back to all of them within 48 hours, especially where they require a response. Sometimes people just say, great video. I always give a thumbs up. In reverse of that is I would appreciate the thumbs up, which is known as the like button. They're both the same thing. If you thought the video was worthy. And if you hit the thumbs down button, if you could take a second to tell me the why so I can make sure I don't repeat foolish mistakes. You know what I mean? My goal is great content. Sometimes I'm successful at it. Sometimes I'm not. And I need to know when those times are. You guys are my beta testers, honestly. You know, I hate to say that because when things are going wrong on your computer, it's because likely the company that you bought something from. Let's use me, for example. My NVIDIA card is giving me trouble. It's always given me trouble. And you start doing some research on it, and it's like they put it together one day, put it in a box the next, put it out for sale, and let the end user buy their stuff and test it for them. And that's frustrating because that's an actual reality. That does happen. Is we, the gamers, are kind of forced to beta test products because they don't want to take the time or pay the money to test it before they release it. But that's a story for another day, right? At the end of the day, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you consider subscribing. All of the things I've asked for, the comments, the likes, even the dislikes, and the sub, move my channel up in the search. I'm not so worried about money. I'm okay. What I'm worried about, and it's not worry in the fact that I'm losing hair or worrying about something, is that the channel shows up higher in the searches on YouTube. YouTube's got an unusual algorithm on how it chooses what sites or channels come up before others. And it's not all based on the size of the channel. So your comments, the likes, and at the end, the sub, not as big a deal as the first two, really make the channel show up more often to people, especially when we're in gameplay. And the thing down the stream about maybe some multiplayer coming, you know, I need to have the numbers to kind of make sure that it, like in Emerge NYC, where we could have, I think it's 10 or 15 openings. You want to make sure that you fill them all. I mean, you don't have to, but it'd be cool, wouldn't it? So anyway, appreciate that. That's the part I'm always the most nervous about bringing up in my videos, but I've got to train myself to do it. I'm going to get back to putting this into a video. I actually uploaded another one and found like 11 mistakes in it, so I have to start over again. It's my OCD taking over. We're into the weekend. It's Friday. Weekend is here. Thank goodness. You guys have a great weekend. Hopefully you get to do whatever you want to do. Hopefully the weather holds out here. I see a barbecue happening in my backyard. But I got to get back to work first. I hope to talk to you soon. And you guys have a great one.